Part 1. The Shadow of a Great Father and the Birth of the Little Boot Introduction. A Ghost on the Palatine. Hello, and welcome to the ASMR Dreams channel. Before we begin our gentle journey into the depths of the first century of our era, I invite you to imagine Rome not as the silent white ruins we see today, but as a living, breathing, restless metropolis. Rome is alive. It pulses, it sweats, it dazzles and repels at the same time. This is a city of noise and echoes, of shouting merchants and clashing chariots, of incense rising toward the gods, and the heavy stench of sewers flowing beneath marble streets. A city where divine grandeur exists side by side with filth, where the finest philosophy is discussed in shaded porticos, while blood darkens the sand of the arenas only a few streets away. Rome of the Julio-Claudian age is a contradiction made real. Here, sacred power and human cruelty are inseparable. Here, emperors are worshipped and feared. The name Caligula has long since become a symbol, a name that instantly awakens images of madness, forbidden desires, cruelty, and that infamous horse said to have been elevated to the Senate itself. But was Caligula truly the monster described by Suetonius and Tacitus? Or was he shaped, slowly and relentlessly, by a system so violent and unstable that it destroyed all who lived within it? To understand Caligula, we cannot begin with his reign. We must go back, far back, to a time before power, before madness, before fear ruled his every breath. We must return to the moment when he was only a small child, standing in soldier's boots far too large for his fragile feet. Origins and childhood roots. The golden blood of Rome, Gaius Julius Caesar, is born on August 31st in the year 12 CE in the quiet coastal town of Antium. His ancestry is flawless, perfect, too perfect. It is the kind of lineage that opens every door and quietly seals one's fate. He is the son of Germanicus, the most beloved general Rome has ever known, and Agrippina the Elder, the granddaughter of Augustus himself, the first emperor, later worshipped as a god. Germanicus embodies Roman virtue. He is handsome, brave, merciful, disciplined, a commander who inspires loyalty and love in equal measure. In modern terms, he is a legend while still alive, a hero people believe in. While Emperor Tiberius, Augustus's successor, is withdrawn, suspicious, and widely disliked, Germanicus shines effortlessly. The people see in him a return to better days, to the Republic, or at least to the golden age of Augustus. Little Gaius grows up beneath this enormous shadow, surrounded by expectations he cannot yet understand. Early years and the nickname, the birth of Caligula Gaius, does not grow up in marble halls. He grows up among tents, armor, and marching boots. His mother, Agrippina, is a woman of iron resolve. She does not wait in Rome while her husband fights on distant frontiers. She follows him into the harsh Germanic lands, bringing her children with her. And it is there, among the legions on the banks of the Rhine, that a small and seemingly harmless legend is born. Imagine a 2-year-old child dressed in a miniature legionary's uniform, a tiny breastplate, a small helmet, and most importantly, caligae, heavy military sandals studded with iron nails. The soldiers, hardened veterans, men whose hands have spilled blood in the name of Rome, soften at the sight. They laugh, they smile, they protect him, they call him Caligula, Little Boot. Gaius will despise this nickname for the rest of his life. To him, it smells of sweat and cheap wine. It reminds him of a time when he is not a person, but a symbol, a mascot, a living charm for the legions. Yet the name never leaves him. It becomes a mark of his bond with the army, a bond that will one day raise him to power and later help destroy him. The death of Germanicus, the end of innocence, in the year 19 CE, when Gaius is only 7 years old, his world collapses. His father, Germanicus, dies suddenly in Syria, under circumstances that feel wrong, unsettling, unresolved, Superficially, the cause is illness. But Rome is a city ruled by whispers, and whispers are stronger than laws. Rumors speak of poison. Suspicion falls on Piso, the governor of Syria. But behind Piso, people sense another shadow, the shadow of Emperor Tiberius himself. The death of Germanicus plunges Rome into unprecedented mourning. People cry openly in the streets. They close shops. They accuse the gods of injustice, defiling their own temples in despair. Agrippina returns to Italy carrying her husband's ashes, leading her children behind her. She is grief incarnate and vengeance. Little Gaius stands beside her, absorbing fear, suspicion, and hatred like the air he breathes. From this moment on, his life becomes a narrow rope stretched over an abyss. His family is now a threat to Tiberius, and Agrippina does not know how to remain silent. She openly accuses the emperor of murder. One by one, members of Gaius's family begin to vanish. Years of terror survival in a serpent's nest at 20 CE weigh heavily over Rome. True power no longer belongs to Tiberius, but to Sejanus, the ambitious and ruthless prefect of the Praetorian Guard. Tiberius withdraws to the island of Capri, tired of rule, tired of hatred, leaving Rome in Sejanus's grip. Gaius watches his mother arrested. He watches as his older brothers, Nero and Drusus, are declared enemies of the state and slowly starved to death in prison. His family is erased. Only Gaius and his sisters remain, Agrippina the Younger, Drusilla, and Julia Livilla. How does he survive? Historians still struggle with this question. Psychologists would later say he masters the art of perfect disguise, perfect dissimulation. Gaius behaves as if nothing is happening. He does not mourn. He does not rage. He obeys. He becomes invisible. Suetonius writes that there has never been a better slave, nor a worse master. Gaius learns to hide his thoughts so deeply that even Sejanus's most skilled spies find nothing. But imagine the inner world of a teenager who eats daily at the table of those who destroyed his family. Here, in these years of constant fear, the traits later labeled Caligula's madness are formed. Not madness in a medical sense, but a distortion of the soul. A lesson learned too well. Truth does not matter. Morality is a mask. Only those who hide well can strike first. Survive. Capri, the school of the monster. In the year 31 CE, Tiberius summons Gaius to Capri. Capri is not a paradise. It is an isolated world, a sealed chamber where the aging emperor indulges his darkest fears and fantasies. Tiberius, mocked in whispered verses as an old goat, sees something in Gaius that others miss. He sees a successor, but a dangerous one. It is said he once remarks, "I am raising a viper for the Roman people, and a python for the whole world." Life on Capri is a strange blend of luxury and terror. Gaius witnesses executions, people thrown from cliffs into the sea, endless feasts, excess, decadence whispered about by contemporaries. Here, he learns the final truth of imperial Rome. An emperor is not a ruler, not a man, but a living god, beyond law, beyond morality, beyond reason. In the year 37 CE, Tiberius begins to fade. He is 77 years old, an almost supernatural age for that time. His death is wrapped in legend. Some say he dies naturally. Others tell a darker story. They say he appears to die. The court begins congratulating Gaius, and then the old man opens his eyes and asks for food. Silence fills the room. Macro, the Praetorian prefect now loyal to Gaius, does not hesitate. He covers the emperor's face with heavy blankets and ends it. And so, quietly, inevitably, the little boy in oversized boots steps closer to absolute power. And in the next part, we will feel how this fragile survivor becomes the ruler of Rome. Part 1. Ascension to power. And so, in March of the year 37 of our era, Gaius Julius Caesar, a 24-year-old young man with almost no experience in state administration, yet having mastered the art of survival to perfection, becomes the sole ruler of the inhabited world. He stands at the center of Rome, carrying within him the memories of fear, silence, and endurance, now suddenly transformed into absolute authority. The honeymoon of the empire. If Caligula were to die only 8 months after the beginning of his reign, history might remember him as one of the greatest emperors Rome ever knew. When news of Tiberius's death reaches the city, Rome erupts with joy. The hatred toward Tiberius is so deep that the crowd shouts, "Tiberius to the Tiber." Against the image of the gloomy, suspicious old ruler, Gaius appears almost angelic. He is young, he is handsome, and above all, he is the son of the beloved Germanicus. To the people of Rome, he feels like deliverance. The Senate immediately grants him every conceivable title, quietly ignoring Tiberius's will, which states that Gaius should rule jointly with Tiberius's grandson, Gemellus. The first months of his reign feel like an endless celebration. Gaius does everything to make the people fall in love with him. He distributes enormous monetary gifts to the Praetorian Guard and to the urban plebs. The vast sums that Tiberius hoarded for decades are suddenly released into the streets of Rome. He proclaims a general amnesty for all those condemned under Tiberius. He publicly burns the records of trials for Maestas, crimes against imperial dignity, declaring that he has nothing to fear, for he has done nothing wrong. He recalls his sisters from exile. The ashes of his mother and brothers are solemnly brought back to Rome and placed in the mausoleum of Augustus. This act of filial piety moves the Romans to tears. Gaius personally pilots the ship carrying their remains, even through a violent storm, demonstrating devotion not only to his family, but to memory itself. He restores chariot races, gladiatorial games, and theatrical performances that Tiberius banned out of austerity and personal restraint. Rome becomes joyful again. One contemporary writes that it feels as if a golden age has returned. Yet behind this blinding curtain of generosity, shadows are already gathering. The immense spending rapidly drains the treasury. And Gaius, a man who has never truly known power, begins to realize that absolute control over millions of lives now rests entirely in his hands. Illness and the change of the mind, the point of no return, the psyche of this young man, shaped by years of fear and by witnessing the dark excesses of Capri, begins to transform under the pressure of unlimited authority. In October of the year 37, an event occurs that historians later mark as a turning point. Caligula falls gravely ill. What is it? Nervous exhaustion? Epilepsy, which he has suffered from since childhood? Or, as whispered behind closed doors, the effect of a love potion or a slow poison? All of Rome prays for his recovery. People sleep outside the palace, waiting for news. Some publicly vow to give their own lives to the gods in exchange for the emperor's survival. Gaius recovers. But the man who rises from his bed is no longer the same young ruler who lay upon it. His gaze becomes hard. His humor turns sharp and cruel. His demands become impossible to satisfy. The first thing he remembers are those who vowed their lives for his. The gods have accepted your vow, he tells them. So why are you still alive? And he forces them to fulfill their promise. This is the first clear signal. The Golden Age ends before it truly begins. What follows is the period we habitually call the madness of Caligula, but which, on closer inspection, reveals itself as something far more complex. A radical experiment. An attempt to transform the Roman Principate into an Eastern-style despotism. Architecture of power conflicts with the Senate and grand constructions, Caligula begins to understand that the system created by Augustus, the so-called Principate, where the emperor is formally only first among equals, is a carefully maintained illusion. Augustus played at being a republican. Tiberius suffered under this game. Caligula decides that if he possesses absolute power, there is no need to pretend. He begins to demand divine honors. At this time, such behavior is unheard of. Emperors are deified only after death and only by decree of the Senate. But Caligula wants to be a god here and now. His relationship with the Senate rapidly deteriorates. The senators, proud aristocrats accustomed to respect, are treated like stage props. Caligula humiliates them openly. He forces former consuls to run alongside his chariot in their togas for miles. He mocks their dignity, constantly reminding them that their lives depend entirely on his whim. At the same time, he launches his famous construction projects. These are not merely roads or temples. They are monuments to his ego. He begins work on the Aqua Claudia and Anio Novus aqueducts, projects that genuinely benefit Rome, yet simultaneously spends unimaginable sums on gigantic palace ships built on Lake Nemi. These ships are floating villas with marble floors, gardens, and plumbing. They are marvels of Roman engineering, created solely for the emperor's pleasure. The question of madness, illness, or calculation. Let us pause for a moment and ask a quiet question. Was he truly mad? Modern psychiatrists often attempt to diagnose him across 2,000 years. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, the aftermath of encephalitis. Yet many historians increasingly favor another interpretation. Caligula is the first emperor to grow up entirely within an established monarchy. He witnesses how intrigue and weakness destroy his family. He may conclude that the only way to survive and rule is to inspire such terror that no one dares even raise their eyes. His extravagance may be psychological warfare against the Roman elite. By declaring himself a god, he removes the Senate's moral foundation. If he is divine, human laws and traditions no longer apply. Yet there is another side. Caligula genuinely suffers from severe insomnia. At night, he wanders the endless corridors of his palace, speaking to Jupiter or commanding the moon to descend into his bed. The boundary between reality and fantasy begins to blur. Family and forbidden bonds, the legend of Drusilla. One of the most scandalous aspects of Caligula's reign is his relationship with his sisters, especially Drusilla. Suetonius claims that their bond begins in childhood and continues after his accession. When Drusilla dies suddenly in the year 38, Gaius collapses into grief, bordering on complete psychological rupture. He declares a period of universal mourning. Laughter becomes a crime. Bathing becomes forbidden. Even dining with one's family is punishable. He proclaims Drusilla a goddess, Panthea. For Rome, this crosses every boundary. Yet through Caligula's eyes, we see a man who trusts no one except his own blood. His sisters are the only people who share his past, his fears, and his divine descent from Augustus. Their bond, whether sexual in reality or only in rumor, is dynastic. He seeks to model himself after the Egyptian Ptolemies, where rulers marry their sisters to preserve divine purity. Toward the next act, and as Caligula pushes further, building bridges across bays, challenging nature itself, and reshaping Rome into the stage for a single god, the empire quietly drifts toward the next chapter. A chapter where power becomes spectacle, and the world becomes his theater. We pause at the moment when Gaius Caesar, having recovered from a severe and nearly fatal illness, finally removes the mask of the merciful princeps. Before us now unfolds the second chapter of his reign, a period that contemporaries describe as a strange fusion of a blood-stained circus and divine revelation. If the first part of his life is a school of survival, then the second becomes a manifesto of absolute freedom, slowly, inevitably dissolving into terror. The bridge at Baiae victory over a prophecy, one of the most astonishing and financially devastating acts of Caligula, is the construction of a bridge across the Bay of Baiae to Puteoli in the year 39. Why build a temporary bridge nearly 3.5 miles long, more than 5 kilometers, across open sea? The answer lies in superstition. It is said that Thrasyllus, the old astrologer of Tiberias, once declared, Gaius has as much chance of becoming emperor as he does of riding a horse across the Bay of Baia. For Caligula, whose legitimacy many quietly question, this is a challenge that cannot be ignored. He orders every available cargo ship from across the Mediterranean to be gathered. Rome briefly suffers shortages, even hunger, as grain ships from Egypt are seized to serve this singular ambition. The vessels are arranged in two parallel lines, anchored firmly, then covered with earth and paved with stone, so that the roadway resembles the famous Appian Way itself. The celebration lasts 2 days. On the first day, Caligula rides across the bridge on horseback, wearing the breastplate of Alexander the Great, an artifact he commands to be taken from Alexander's tomb in Alexandria. On the second day, he crosses again, this time in a chariot, followed by vast crowds. As night falls, the bridge is illuminated by thousands of lights, turning the bay into a glowing, unreal arena. This is not mere madness. It is triumph over nature and over fate itself. Caligula demonstrates that nothing is impossible for him. He walks upon the sea like a god, but the cost of this gesture is immense. The treasury, patiently filled by Tiberius over decades, begins to empty at a frightening pace. Incitatus, a horse, as a political statement, it is impossible to speak of Caligula without mentioning Incitatus, his beloved resource. The story that the emperor intends to make his horse a consul is often presented as ultimate proof of insanity. But let us look more closely. Incitatus lives in a luxury that many senators could envy. He has a stable of marble, a manger of ivory, purple blankets, and jeweled collars. He is assigned his own household of slaves, and even a residence where he receives guests on behalf of the emperor. When Caligula announces his intention to appoint Incitatus as consul, the highest state office in Rome, he is likely not insane. He is profoundly cynical. With this gesture, he tells the Senate, "Your offices are worthless. You are so insignificant that I can replace any of you with a horse, and the governance of the empire will not suffer." This is not schizophrenia. It is political mockery at its sharpest edge. Caligula despises the aristocracy, the class he believes betrayed his father and destroyed his family, and he seizes every opportunity to grind their dignity into dust. Dominus et Deus, the birth of an earthly god, by the year 40 of our era, Caligula is no longer satisfied with being merely the first citizen. He openly demands worship as a living god. For Rome, this is revolutionary. Tradition allows emperors to be deified after death, but to demand sacrifices while alive belongs to Eastern despots, not Roman rulers. He begins transforming his palace on the Palatine Hill into an enormous temple. He orders the palace structures extended so that the ancient temple of Castor and Pollux on the Forum becomes its vestibule. Gaius often stands between the statues of the divine twins so that passers-by and visitors bow to him alongside the gods. He conducts conversations with Jupiter Capitolinus. It is said that sometimes he whispers to the statue and sometimes shouts at it, threatening to send Jupiter back to Greece. He even builds a bridge across the Forum, connecting the Palatine to the Capitoline Hill so that he may visit his brother Jupiter more conveniently. Caligula replaces the heads of statues brought from Greece, substituting them with his own likeness. He establishes a college of priests dedicated to his personal cult. Membership costs staggering sums, allowing him to feed both his ego and the depleted treasury. Among these priests is his horse, Incitatus. Caligula's irony knows no limits, yet it is steeped in fear and quietly dripping with blood. Financial terror. How to ruin an empire. When the 2,700,000,000 sesterces left by Tiberius are exhausted, Caligula reveals a dark ingenuity in finding new sources of revenue. He initiates a wave of trials against the wealthiest citizens of Rome. The charges are predictable: treason or tax evasion. The property of the condemned is confiscated for the state. Suetonius describes how the emperor personally conducts auctions, selling gladiators, slaves, and even the property of his own sisters, whom he exiles after uncovering the Lepidus conspiracy. At these auctions, courtiers are forced to bid prices many times higher than the true value. One senator reportedly falls asleep during an auction. Caligula interprets his nodding as bids. The man awakens to find himself the owner of 13 gladiators and an enormous debt. Taxes are imposed on everything, on food sold in the city, on legal proceedings, even on intimate services. He opens a brothel within his palace on the Palatine, forcing the wives and daughters of prominent senators to work there, charging admission. It is not only a source of income, but another carefully calculated humiliation of the Roman elite. War with Neptune. The British campaign, one of the strangest episodes of Caligula's reign, is his northern military campaign of 39 to 40. He marches into Germany and Gaul with a massive army. The stated aim is a display of power, and perhaps the conquest of Britain, an island Rome has failed to subdue since Julius Caesar. The German campaign dissolves into a series of theatrical maneuvers. Caligula orders trees cut down to clear paths, declares false alarms, awards soldiers for victories in battles that never occur. For his triumphal return to Rome, he selects the tallest Gauls, forces them to dye their hair, and teaches them a few German words so they may pose as captured enemies. The climax comes on the shores of the English Channel. The legions stand in battle formation. Catapults and ballistae are prepared. The soldiers wait for the command to sail to Britain. Instead, Caligula orders them to collect seashells. He declares the shells to be the spoils of the ocean, claimed for the Capitoline and the Palatine. Soldiers fill their helmets with shells and scallops. Afterward, he orders the construction of a tall tower, a lighthouse, and rewards the troops generously, as if they have won a monumental victory. For a long time, historians see this as pure insanity. Yet modern scholars suggest another possibility. Perhaps the army stands on the brink of mutiny, refusing to cross a dangerous strait toward unknown lands. And so, beneath the surface of spectacle and absurdity, another truth quietly stirs, drawing us closer to the final, inevitable descent of Caligula's reign. Caligula understands that he cannot force them to fight, so he chooses another path, to mock their fear by ordering them to perform an absurd task, and in this way formally concludes the campaign, saving face. Or perhaps this too is a ritual of subjugating the ocean itself, that vast and terrifying deity, to the will of the emperor. The private life of Caligula, bloody weddings and sleepless nights. Caligula's private life is as chaotic as his rule. He is married 4 times. His final wife, Melonia Caesonia, is neither young nor conventionally beautiful, yet she holds a strange power over him. Rumors spread that she gives him a love potion, a mixture whispered to be the cause of his unraveling mind. She bears him a daughter named Julia Drusilla after his beloved deceased sister. Stories circulate that the child is as wild as her father. The little girl scratches at the eyes of other children, and Caligula proudly declares this undeniable proof of her lineage. Insomnia and the emperor's appearance. Caligula suffers from severe insomnia. He sleeps no more than 3 or 4 hours a night. For most of the darkness, he wanders the endless galleries of his palace, which he has transformed into a labyrinth without center or end. He speaks to shadows, calls for the dawn, and waits for the moon to descend to him. His appearance changes noticeably during these years. Suetonius describes him as tall, with pale skin, thinning hair at the crown, and a body unusually covered in hair. He practices terrifying expressions before mirrors, training his face into masks of fear, so that his subjects tremble even before he speaks. The devaluation of life. Let them hate as long as they fear. Cruelty becomes routine. Caligula often repeats a line from the tragedian Accius, "Let them hate so long as they fear." It becomes his motto. At gladiatorial games, if there is a pause or the heat grows oppressive, he may order random spectators seized from the crowd and thrown to the wild beasts. Beforehand, He commands their tongues cut out, so they cannot curse him. Executions lose all logic. People die not for crimes, but for convenience. The elimination of threats. His former ally Macro, the man who helps him reach the throne, is forced to take his own life. His father-in-law Silenus meets the same fate. Gemellus, the grandson of Tiberius, is murdered. Caligula destroys anyone who might become the center of a conspiracy, or simply remind him of his own human vulnerability. Once, at a banquet, he suddenly begins to laugh. When the consuls seated beside him ask what amuses him so, he replies that he has just thought how easily a single nod of his head could have both their throats cut at once. This is the late Caligula, a man who turns his own life and the life of the entire empire into a nightmarish performance. He is the director, the lead actor, and the only spectator whose opinion matters. Crisis and the sense of an ending. By the beginning of the year 41, tension in Rome reaches its limit. Caligula manages to turn everyone against him. The Senate hates him for constant humiliation and financial plunder. The people, who once adore him for spectacle, begin to grumble. Games cannot replace bread, and taxes suffocate the city. The army is dissatisfied with strange campaigns and the absence of real victories or spoils. Most importantly, he loses the support of his closest protectors, the Praetorian Guard. Caligula has a fatal habit. He delights in mocking those closest to him. Cassius Chaerea, from humiliation to hatred. Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Praetorians, is a veteran of many wars. He is brave, disciplined, but possesses a thin, high-pitched voice. Caligula constantly mocks him. He gives him daily passwords, such as Priapus, the fertility god with an enormous phallus, or Venus, hinting at Chaerea's supposed softness. He forces him into humiliating gestures, kissing the emperor's hand in public. Caligula does not understand that beneath the mask of obedience, cold and lethal fury is quietly ripening. The conspiracy forms. Senators and freedmen begin to join the plot. Even those who owe everything to Caligula understand one thing: the emperor has become unpredictable. Today he grants you an estate. Tomorrow he orders you to open your veins because he dislikes the color of your toga. Omen's nature protests. Ancient sources preserve many stories of signs preceding his death. It is said that the statue of Jupiter at Olympia, which Caligula plans to transport to Rome, bursts into thunderous laughter, so violent that the scaffolding collapses and the workers flee in terror. On the day of his death, lightning strikes the Capitoline Hill. Caligula himself dreams that he stands before Jupiter's throne, and the god kicks him, hurling him from the heavens down to earth. But Caligula, convinced of his own divinity, ignores these signs. He prepares for a new journey, this time to Alexandria. There, he plans to finally establish himself as an Eastern god-king, perhaps abandoning Rome forever, the city he has grown to despise. This becomes the final spark. If the emperor leaves for Egypt, he will be beyond the reach of their blades. Action must be immediate. End of part 2. In the next part, we will examine in detail the final hours of Gaius Caesar, the mechanics of the conspiracy during the Palatine Games, the bloody resolution in a dark palace corridor, and the chaos that grips Rome when news spreads through the streets that a god has died. We will also reflect on Caligula's legacy. Was he truly mad, or was his image deliberately demonized by later historians? Part 3, Bloody Noon on the Palatine, the conspiracy and the fall of a god. We now approach the moment that becomes the climax of one of the shortest and strangest chapters in the history of the Roman Empire. January 41 AD, Rome stands frozen in anticipation. A sense of catastrophe hangs in the air. Emperor Gaius Caesar, barely 28 years old, has ruled for only 3 years, 10 months, and 8 days. Yet in that brief span, he has turned the world upside down. The fabric of the conspiracy: anger, fear, and vengeance. The plot against Caligula is not the work of one man or one faction. It is a rare coalition in Roman history, uniting those who normally despise one another: senators, equestrians, praetorian officers, and even the emperor's closest freedmen. At the center stands Cassius Chaerea. As mentioned before, Chaerea is a man of the old school, a veteran of the German wars. He may even have served under Caligula's father, the great Germanicus. For him, the emperor's daily mockery is not merely personal insult. It is an assault on the honor of a Roman soldier. But Chaerea is not alone. Beside him stands Cornelius Sabinus, another Praetorian tribune, and Annius Venetianus, a senator burning with vengeance for executed friends and relatives. Most crucially, the conspiracy includes Callistus, one of the most powerful freedmen of the age. Callistus is the gray cardinal of the court. He sees that Caligula's paranoia is spreading even to his most loyal servants. Realizing that his own head may be next, he chooses to change masters. According to some sources, it is Callistus who secretly establishes contact with Clodius, the emperor's uncle, a man widely regarded as a fool and a nobody, preparing the ground for what must come after. The final omen dreams and blood, and so, beneath the surface of fear and fate, the final signs begin to gather, quietly guiding us toward the last irreversible act. The Romans are deeply superstitious, and Suetonius, with almost eager attention, lists the omens that are said to foretell the end of Gaius. In Rome, signs and portents are never mere coincidences. They are woven into daily life, into politics, into fear itself. It is whispered that only a few days before the murder, during a sacrificial ritual, the blood of the sacrificial flamingo splashes onto the emperor's toga. Such a moment would have felt heavy with meaning to any Roman, as if the gods themselves were speaking through spilled blood. Gaius himself is troubled by strange dreams. He believes he is rising into the sky, climbing higher and higher, only for Jupiter to strike him down and cast him back to the earth. In another dream, on the very night before his death, he stands before the throne of the gods, and they turn away from him, rejecting his presence. These dreams linger in his mind like shadows at dawn. And yet Caligula, consumed by delusions of grandeur, believes that he no longer obeys the gods, but commands them. In his thoughts, divine will bends to his own. He prepares for the Palatine Games, an annual theatrical festival held directly on the hill where the imperial palace stands. These games are meant to honor tradition, spectacle, and power, blending entertainment with ritual, art with dominance. January 24th, in the year 41, arrives. It will later be remembered as a theater of death. The day begins like any other festival day. A temporary wooden theater rises on the Palatine, hastily built yet grand enough to impress the crowd. Despite feeling unwell, suffering from insomnia and stomach pain after a long night of feasting, Gaius decides to appear before the people. His mood is light, almost cheerful, as if he senses no danger at all. He is surrounded by his loyal Germanic guard giant mercenaries, who do not understand Latin and whose loyalty belongs only to him, not to the Senate, not to the Roman people. They are his shield, his personal wall of flesh and steel. Gaius takes his place in the imperial box. The performances are bloody and symbolic. It is said that on this very day, a mime is staged in which an actor vomits blood, and a play is performed about a tyrant who is murdered. The coincidence feels almost supernatural, as if reality itself is quietly rehearsing what is about to happen. Around midday, Gaius decides to go to the baths and have a light meal before the spectacles continue. This moment is critical. The conspirators know this is their only chance. If he takes the open route, surrounded by guards, an attack would be nearly impossible. But Gaius chooses another path, the Cryptoporticus, a corridor of shadows. The Palatine Palace is threaded with a network of underground and covered passageways. These cryptoporticos are cool, half-dark corridors decorated with mosaics, designed to allow the emperor to move between buildings, hidden from heat and from the eyes of the crowd. Stone absorbs sound here. Footsteps echo softly. Light fades into calm gloom. Gaius enters one of these corridors. With him is only a small group of attendants, and among them, some of the conspirators, carefully pretending to be ordinary companions. His Germanic guard lags behind, delayed in the theater or waiting near the entrance. In the shadowed corridor, Gaius encounters a group of boys from noble families brought from Asia to sing hymns in his honor. He stops to speak with them, insisting that they begin rehearsing right here, right now. This pause, this small delay seals his fate. Sharia approaches first. According to custom, he is supposed to ask for the password. Gaius, true to habit, responds with yet another insult, mocking the tribune's masculinity, turning ritual into humiliation. In that instant, Sharia draws his sword and shouts, "Take this." The blade strikes his neck, between shoulder and throat. Gaius does not die immediately. He collapses, twisting in pain, and cries out, "I am still alive." It is the cry of a man who, until the final second, cannot believe that he, a god, can bleed like any mortal. But the conspirators have already lost control, driven by terror and fury. Cornelius Sabinus delivers the second blow, straight into the chest. Others rush forward, striking again and again. Later, more than 30 wounds are counted on Caligula's body. Some conspirators, in madness, even bite his lifeless flesh, tearing at it like animals, as if violence itself has swallowed reason. Chaos erupts on the Palatine. When news of the murder reaches the Germanic guard, they fall into indescribable rage. To them, Gaius is not a tyrant, but a generous master, their only connection to Rome. They storm the corridors, killing anyone in their path, unable or unwilling to distinguish conspirator from bystander. Several senators are beheaded, their heads displayed in the theater arena, terrifying the crowd. Rome sinks into confusion. No one knows for certain whether the emperor is truly dead. Rumors fly through the city like restless spirits. Some say he has survived. Others claim the gods have healed his wounds. Some whisper that Caligula himself has spread rumors of his death to test the loyalty of the people. Meanwhile, the Senate gathers on the Capitoline Hill. For the first time in nearly 100 years, senators taste the idea of real power. Speeches fill the air about restoring the Republic, erasing the name of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, destroying all monuments to Gaius. But while they speak, true power is already moving. The Praetorian Guard is searching for a new master. While the Capitol debates democracy, truly horrifying events unfold in the palace. The conspirators understand that as long as Gaius's wife and child live, their work is unfinished. Melonia Cazunia, the emperor's wife, is found beside his mutilated body. She sits in a pool of blood, overcome with grief. It is said she shows a dignity no one expects of her. She simply bares her neck to the centurion's sword, asking to be killed with the same blade that killed Gaius. But the most dreadful act of that day is the death of their daughter, Julia Drusilla. She is not yet 2 years old. A centurion seizes the child by the legs and smashes her head against the corridor wall. In that moment, the line of Germanicus ends. The hope that the blood of gods will continue to rule Rome is extinguished. And here, history turns with bitter irony. Caligula's uncle, Claudius, is in the palace during the murder. Hearing the sounds of struggle and screams, he hides in terror behind a heavy curtain in one of the galleries, certain he will be next. A passing soldier named Gradus notices feet protruding from beneath the fabric. He pulls the curtain aside and recognizes the trembling man as the brother of Germanicus. Claudius falls to his knees, begging for mercy. But instead of striking him down, Gradus cries out, "It's Germanicus," meaning his family. He proclaims Claudius emperor. The soldiers lift him, place him on a litter, and carry him to their camp. The Senate, still arguing about the Republic, suddenly realizes it has no army. The Praetorians have chosen their ruler. Claudius, who for decades has pretended to be a fool in order to survive under Tiberius and Caligula, becomes emperor of Rome. His first act is to pardon most of the conspirators. But Sharia and Sabinus are executed not for killing a tyrant, but for raising their hands against a member of the imperial family. Claudius understands one simple truth. If the killers of emperors walk free, his own life is worth less than a single sestertius. After Caligula's death, his name is condemned in Emery's curse. His statues are melted down or thrown into the Tiber. His decrees are annulled, and yet his image remains burned into history. Now, having traced his path from birth to death, we arrive at the central question. Who was Caligula, truly? The traditional portrait left to us by Suetonius and Tacitus shows a mad sadist. But we must remember that these historians write decades later, representing the interests of the senatorial aristocracy, the very people Caligula humiliates and destroys. To them, he is the embodiment of monarchy's worst vices. Modern historians see a more complex figure, a man shaped by profound psychological trauma. His entire family is murdered before his eyes. His youth is spent under constant surveillance and fear. When absolute power finally falls into his hands, he does not know how to use it except as a shield against real and imagined enemies. And as we gently let this chapter fade, the story prepares to drift further into memory, myth, and the quiet question of how power transforms the human mind. Many of his seemingly mad actions carry an inner political logic. First, divinity. This is an attempt to create an Eastern-style theocratic monarchy, a sacred kingship designed to wrench power away from the Senate. If the emperor is a god, then the Senate becomes nothing more than a group of attendants, caretakers of ritual, servants without real authority. Divine status is not just vanity here. It is a calculated weapon, dissolving constitutional limits in the soft glow of worship. Second, the consul horse. The appointment of his horse as consul is not simply absurdity, but radical satire. It is a cruel mirror held up to the aristocracy of the time, exposing what Caligula sees as their emptiness and incompetence. If a horse can hold office, then what does that say about those who already do? Third, the war against the ocean. Most likely, this is a way to confront unrest among the soldiers without losing authority. By turning a potential mutiny into a symbolic campaign, Caligula preserves the illusion of command. The sea becomes an enemy that cannot truly resist him, and victory is guaranteed by spectacle alone. And yet, alongside this cold political calculation, there are undeniable signs of psychological disturbance. Chronic insomnia erodes his sense of reality. Sudden, uncontrollable bursts of anger appear without warning. Pathological cruelty and extreme eccentricity push far beyond any rational political strategy. Power settles onto an unstable mind, and together they form a volatile mixture, quietly humming with danger. The financial legacy and architecture tell a similar story of excess and brilliance intertwined. Caligula leaves behind an empty treasury, drained by spectacle and ambition. But he also leaves Rome with monumental achievements. His aqueducts, Aqua Claudia and Anio Novus, are completed under Claudius and supply the city with water for centuries. His enormous ships on Lake Nemi, raised from the depths only in the 20th century by order of Mussolini, reveal engineering thought at astonishing heights. These floating palaces have heated floors and taps that run with hot water. Technologies forgotten for nearly 1,500 years after him. He becomes Rome's first truly theatrical tyrant. Caligula transforms politics into performance, into a bloody and symbolic spectacle. After him, the empire is never the same. Augustus creates a system built on delicate balance and polite pretense. Caligula tears the pretense apart, revealing the naked essence of imperial power, the unsheathed sword and the will of a single man. A shadow lingers on the centuries. Caligula becomes a symbol of what happens when a person gains everything while possessing no inner moral restraints. His life stands as a warning. Rome will see emperors far more brutal and blood-soaked. Nero, Domitian, but none possess that strange, almost childlike immediacy in their cruelty that defines Gaius. His death brings Rome no freedom. It merely replaces one Julio Claudian with another. The Republic is already dead, and Caligula is the one who hammers the final nails into its coffin, mocking the very idea that senators could be anything more than servants in elegant togas. This concludes the third part. We have traveled a long path from the camps of the Germanic legions to a dark corridor on the Palatine. Yet our exploration is far from complete. In the next part, we move into deeper analysis. We will examine the social structure of Rome under Caligula, his influence on the provinces, especially Judea, where his attempt to place his statue in the Temple of Jerusalem nearly ignites a world war. We will also explore how the dark myth of Caligula takes shape in the works of ancient historians, and return once more to his ship palaces as reflections of the technological level of his age. Part 4. The Engineer of Divinity and the Crisis in Judea. We continue our deep immersion into the era of Gaius Caesar. In previous chapters, we trace his journey from the darling of the legions to a bloodied body in a shadowed corridor. But to make this exploration whole, we must move beyond biography and observe how Caligula's reign affects the body of the empire itself, from engineering marvels to religious conflicts that nearly ignite the eastern frontiers. The ships of Lake Nemi, floating temples of madness or of progress. One of the most tangible proofs that Caligula's ambitions know no limits lies in the famous ships of Lake Nemi. This lake, resting in the crater of an extinct volcano near Rome, is a sacred place devoted to the goddess Diana. But Gaius decides to turn it into his personal stage. Imagine it slowly, a small mountain lake, and upon it two colossal vessels, each over 70 meters long and nearly 20 meters wide. For their time, they are true titans. These are not warships. They are floating palaces. Archaeological discoveries of the 1930s, when the lake is partially drained by Mussolini's order, reveal astonishing details. The floors are laid with the finest mosaics and multicolored marble. Walls are adorned with frescoes, roofs covered in gilded tiles. Most astonishing of all is the technology. Lead pipe systems deliver both hot and cold water. There are baths, gardens with real trees, and vast halls for feasts. Caligula uses these ships for religious rituals and prolonged orgies lasting days. He wishes to demonstrate that even nature itself bends to his will. The massive vessels maneuver across the tiny lake, creating the illusion of an entire city floating on water. This is the pinnacle of Hellenistic luxury, transplanted onto Italian soil. The Nemi ships show us Caligula not as a simple madman, but as a ruler obsessed with aesthetics and technical superiority. He wants to surround himself with an environment worthy of a god. Caligula and the Intellectuals, a critic in purple. Gaius is often portrayed as crude and uneducated, but this is far from the truth. He is a brilliant orator, perhaps one of the finest of his age. His mind is sharp, acidic, merciless. He holds open contempt for the revered authorities of the past. He wishes to destroy the works of Homer, declaring that if Plato can expel Homer from his ideal state, then why should he not do the same? He mocks Virgil, calling him talentless and illiterate, and derides Livy, the great historian, accusing him of verbosity and unreliability. This is not mere whim. Caligula seeks to dismantle the cultural foundations upon which the authority of the Senate and the old aristocracy rests. He wants to be the sole source of truth and taste in the empire. His humor is dark and deeply unsettling. When one of his companions asks why he is in such high spirits, Gaius replies that he has just thought about how, with a single gesture, that man's head could roll across the floor. His intellect is turned into a tool for dissolving social bonds. He delights in placing people in moments of unbearable discomfort, asking philosophical questions at the worst possible times, during executions or torture. This becomes a form of intellectual sadism, frightening his contemporaries no less than open violence. The crisis in Judea, a statue that nearly destroys the world. Perhaps the most dangerous episode of Caligula's foreign and religious policy unfolds in Judea. This event nearly leads to a full-scale war a decade before the Great Revolt of the year 66. It begins in Alexandria, where tensions between Greek and Jewish populations regularly erupt into violence. Caligula, demanding divine honors, finds support among the Greeks, who eagerly places statues in synagogues, fully aware that this is a mortal insult to the Jews. When Jewish communities protest, Caligula interprets it as a personal attack on his divinity. In a surge of rage, he issues an order that shocks the ancient world. A colossal gilded statue of himself, in the likeness of Zeus, is to be placed in the Holy of Holies of the Jerusalem temple. The Syrian governor Publius Petronius receives orders to march 2 legions into Judea to enforce the installation by force. For the Jews, this means the end of the world. Thousands take to the streets, abandon their fields, lie down before Roman horses, declaring that they would rather all die than allow such desecration. And as this tension tightens like a held breath, the story gently carries us forward toward the fragile moment where belief, power, and restraint stand trembling on the edge of history. Petronius, a man of wisdom and restraint, understands that carrying out this order would unleash a slaughter the empire would never be able to absorb. He delays. He stretches time as gently as possible, sending evasive, carefully worded letters to Gaius, fully aware that each message risks his own life. He stands between command and catastrophe, hoping that hesitation itself might become a form of mercy. At this moment, another figure steps quietly into the unfolding drama. Agrippa I, king of Judea and a childhood friend of Caligula. They grow up together in Rome, sharing youth, ambition, and the fragile bonds of privilege. Agrippa invites Gaius to an extraordinary feast. The wine flows freely, the atmosphere softens, and when the emperor, relaxed and warmed by indulgence, offers his friend any gift he desires, Agrippa asks for only one thing: the cancellation of the order to install the statue. Caligula agrees. For a moment, the world exhales. But his ego is wounded. The concession lingers like an unhealed cut. Soon, he changes his mind again and orders a new statue to be crafted in Rome, planning to transport it personally to Jerusalem during his anticipated journey to Alexandria. Only the emperor's death in January of the 41st year prevents Judea from sliding into unavoidable disaster. This episode reveals the true danger of Caligula's megalomania. Entire regions are placed at risk, not for strategy or necessity, but for the fragile satisfaction of wounded pride. The economy of chaos, taxes on air and blood. We return now to finances. We already know that Gaius quickly exhausts the inheritance of Tiberius. But how does he sustain the machinery of the state afterward? He introduces a system that resembles state-sanctioned extortion. Wealthy citizens are forced to name him as a co-heir in their wills. If a rich man does not die quickly enough, Gaius may hasten the process by sending a cup of poison. He imposes a tax on legal proceedings, claiming 40% of the value of every lawsuit. He taxes pimps, prostitutes, even cooks. Suetonius writes that tax collection becomes so aggressive that people fear stepping outside in new clothes, worried they might attract the attention of collectors. But there is yet another method: outright fraud. Gaius holds auctions of state property, personally acting as auctioneer. He forces people to purchase rusted armor or old palace furniture at prices hundreds of times higher than their true value. Refusal is treated as disrespect toward the emperor, which in practice means a death sentence. These measures, however absurd they appear, serve a single goal: to transform all property of the empire into the personal possession of Caesar. He seeks to destroy the very concept of private ownership independent of imperial will. Caligula and the army, love and hatred of the little boot. Gaius's relationship with the legions is deeply conflicted. On one hand, he is the son of Germanicus, and the soldiers see him as one of their own. On the other, he treats them with the same cynical humor he reserves for senators. His payments to the Praetorians are lavish, yet he keeps them constantly on edge. He may declare a false alarm in the middle of the night, forcing the entire guard to rush toward the sea, simply to test their readiness. He rewards them with meaningless titles and decorations for victories over German forests or the waves of the ocean. His Germanic guard becomes his only true support. These men, recruited from tribes beyond the Rhine, have no ties to Rome, no understanding of political intrigue. They obey only the one who feeds them and hangs golden chains around their necks. They become his final stronghold, and their fury after his death shows that for some, Caligula truly is a living god. But the frontier legions begin to lose respect for an emperor who never leads them into real battle, yet demands triumphs. The army is an institution built on valor. Caligula replaces valor with theater. His war against Neptune becomes perhaps the greatest mockery of Roman military ethos. Soldiers feel themselves turned into props for his deranged performances. Palace life, the retinue of a tyrant. The court of Caligula is a place where life and death are separated by the thin edge of a joke. He surrounds himself not with advisors, but with accomplices. His freedmen, such as Callistus, wield more power than consuls. They control access to the emperor's body, and every minute of audience costs a fortune. His sisters, Agrippina, Drusilla, and Julia, occupy an exceptional position. They sit beside him at banquets. Their names are included in official oaths and prayers. This is the creation of a sacred family, where blood relation to the emperor becomes the sole source of legitimacy. When Gaius suspects Agrippina and Julia of conspiracy with Lepidus, the husband of Drusilla, he treats them with the same cruelty as enemies. He exiles them to distant islands, forcing Agrippina first to carry the urn containing her lover's ashes in her own hands. This is Caligula in essence. Every punishment transformed into symbolic theater. Religion, the emperor-priest, and the god-actor. Caligula does not merely demand worship. He actively participates in religious rituals, yet his participation is deeply parodic. He dresses as Jupiter, complete with false beard and golden thunderbolt, then soon appears as Venus or Diana. He turns state religion into carnival. He appoints priests from among his friends, then demands enormous payments for the honor. He interrupts solemn sacrifices to dance or sing. For conservative Romans, this is not merely madness, it is sacrilege, a provocation that threatens divine wrath upon the city. Caligula, however, sees it as the highest form of freedom. He stands above the gods because he can play their roles, exchange their attributes, and dictate their will. His claim that he invites the moon into his bed is not hallucination, but a declaration of status, a being beyond both human and divine order. The shadow over Rome, life under Gaius. What is daily life like for the ordinary Roman? On one side, endless celebration. Caligula loves public festivities. He throws gold coins into the crowd and distributes tesserae, tokens for grain and gifts. For the plebs, he is a good emperor. He provides bread and spectacle of unprecedented scale. On the other side, an atmosphere of denunciation. Any word spoken in a tavern can be interpreted as an insult to the emperor. Suetonius tells of a man executed simply for being better dressed than Gaius at a festival. The city lives in a strange rhythm. Noisy circus games by day, empty streets by night, and the echo of Praetorian boots marching toward yet another victim. Caligula builds a massive lighthouse at Ostia to secure Rome's grain supply. He wants the city to shine. But it is the glow of a rotting fruit. The economy is undermined, the elite demoralized, the army disoriented. The journey to Alexandria, the final dream. By the end of the 40th year, Caligula speaks more and more often of moving to Alexandria. Egypt has always tempted Roman rulers. It is the land of true autocracy, where pharaohs are worshipped as living gods without senatorial conditions. He plans to abandon Rome, which he despises, and establish a new capital where his divinity will be recognized without question. This journey is meant to become his final triumph. He orders vast fleets to be prepared, and as the ships begin to gather, the air itself seems to hold its breath, gently carrying us toward the moment when this dream will collide with fate. He gathers the treasures of Italy, slowly and deliberately, preparing to send them eastward. Gold, art, sacred objects, wealth accumulated over generations. All of it is meant to travel with him. For the Ramong Senate, this plan feels like a silent death sentence. If the emperor leaves for Alexandria, Rome is no longer the center of the world. It becomes a provincial city, and the Senate fades into something ceremonial, a quiet club of aging men speaking to one another, but no longer to power. The architectural legacy of Caligula, it is precisely this plan that becomes the catalyst for Sharia's conspiracy. The conspirators have very little time. The moment Gaius steps onto the ship, he becomes untouchable, surrounded by fleets, guards, and distance. The decision must be made here, now, before the sea carries him away. Architecture, in this context, becomes a manifesto of power, solid, visible, impossible to ignore. As we gently close this section, it is important to speak of Caligula's architectural legacy. He builds often, and he builds quickly. Beyond aqueducts, he begins construction of a vast circus on the Vatican Hill, later known as the Circus of Nero, the very place where, centuries later, St. Peter's Basilica will rise. The obelisk that now stands at the center of St. Peter's Square is brought from Egypt by Caligula himself, transported across the sea as a symbol of imperial reach. These structures reveal his taste for grand imperial scale. He wants Rome to appear as the capital of the entire world, bent to the will of a single man. His buildings are functional, yet always tinged with theatricality. Even his aqueducts are not merely systems of engineering. They are symbols, visual statements that the emperor brings life itself into the city, the symbolism of Caligula's constructions. And yet, behind the facades, there is an emptiness. Caligula builds for himself, not for eternity. His constructions are monuments to fleeting desire, not to lasting order. After his death, Claudius completes many of the projects begun by Gaius, but carefully removes his name from friezes and inscriptions. Gaius Caesar disappears from stone, but remains in memory, as a shadow, as a ghost, reminding future generations how dangerous it is to entrust absolute power to a man who believes himself to be a god. Part 5. The Anatomy of a Myth. Caligula through the centuries, we now move into the final, and perhaps most important, part of our exploration. We have examined the facts, traced the chronology, and wandered through the darker corridors of the Palatine Palace. Now a quieter question arises. Why do we know Caligula in the way we do? How did his image become synonymous with absolute evil and madness? To answer this, we must gently unravel the mechanisms of Roman propaganda and the ways later historians constructed what became known as the Black Legend. Historiography and propaganda historiography. Who wrote the history of Gaius? The central problem in studying Caligula is that we possess very few contemporary sources that can be considered neutral. The main architects of this image are three men: Suetonius, Tacitus, and Cassius Dio. First, Suetonius. Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus. His work, The Lives of the 12 Caesars, is a blend of biography and collected gossip. He writes during the reigns of Trajan and Hadrian, long after the Julio-Claudian dynasty has ended. His method is simple and powerful. He divides a ruler's life into two halves, before he becomes a monster and after. It is Suetonius who fills Caligula's story with vivid details: the horse consul, incest, theatrical cruelty, and demands for divine worship. But it is important to understand that Suetonius is an imperial secretary. He has access to archives, yes, but he also knows his audience. His readers crave sensation. His biographies are not pure history. They are moral portraits designed to instruct and to warn. Second, Tacitus, the greatest of Roman historians. Unfortunately, the sections of his annals dealing directly with Caligula's reign are lost. What remains are brief mentions elsewhere. Yet Tacitus sets the tone. For him, Caligula is not an accident, but an inevitable result of the system created by Augustus. Grant one man absolute power, and sooner or later madness follows. Third, Cassius Dio writes nearly 2 centuries after Caligula's death. He relies heavily on earlier sources, but adds detailed descriptions of financial manipulation and administrative chaos. His Caligula is not only cruel, but destabilizing, a ruler whose personal whims ripple outward through the entire state. Senatorial opposition and damnatio memoria. Why are these authors so harsh toward Gaius? The answer lies in Rome's social structure. The Senate is the guardian of tradition. Caligula does not merely kill senators, he humiliates them. He shatters the illusion that the emperor is merely the first among equals. After his death, the Senate does not officially declare damnatio memoria because Claudius intervenes to protect his family's honor. Yet in practice, it happens anyway. Statues are smashed, coins melted down, names erased from inscriptions. In such an atmosphere, any historian wishing to preserve reputation and life under new emperors must portray Caligula as a monster. The worse Gaius appears, the more legitimate his successors seem. Eyewitness testimony. We also possess 2 unique voices, the Jewish authors Philo of Alexandria and Josephus. Philo personally leads a delegation of Alexandrian Jews to the emperor in the year 40. His treatise on the embassy to Gaius is a priceless first-hand account. Philo describes Caligula not as a drooling madman, but as a capricious, mocking, and extremely dangerous intellectual. He depicts Gaius running through his palace in the gardens of Lamia, giving orders to repair windows, and casually asking delegates questions like, "Why do you not eat pork?" In Philo's portrayal, Caligula is intoxicated by power, taking pleasure in making others feel small and helpless. Josephus, in his Jewish Antiquities, provides the most detailed account of the conspiracy and assassination. For him, Caligula is a tyrant whose fate proves that divine providence always punishes those who violate sacred boundaries. Together, these authors confirm many of Gaius's traits, yet they also show him as an active, calculating ruler, not merely a lunatic, a psychological portrait. A diagnosis across 2 millennia. Modern medicine and psychology often attempt to diagnose historical figures. In Caligula's case, many theories exist. Epilepsy is mentioned by Suetonius, a condition Caligula suffers from in childhood. In antiquity, epilepsy is seen as a sacred disease, but its effects could influence emotional stability. Hyperthyroidism, or Graves' disease, might explain the bulging eyes described by sources, along with insomnia, extreme irritability, and weight loss. Encephalitis, possibly the result of the severe illness in the year 37, could cause permanent personality changes, aggression, and loss of empathy. Narcissistic personality disorder and sociopathy are also proposed. Growing up under constant threat, witnessing the destruction of his family, and suddenly receiving unlimited power could form the classic profile of a tyrant. Yet historians caution us. Not everything should be reduced to medicine. Caligula's madness is often political. Declaring a wealthy man insane is an efficient way to confiscate his property. Humiliating the Senate through eccentric theater is a tool of domination, not merely impulse. Caligula in culture. In culture, Caligula becomes a mirror. His image fascinates artists, writers, and filmmakers. In the 20th century, he transforms into a symbol of existential crisis and the absurdity of power. First, Albert Camus. In his play Caligula, Gaius is a philosopher who realizes that people die and live in misery. His cruelty becomes an attempt to achieve the impossible, to reach divine freedom by rejecting human morality entirely. Camus' Caligula is not a monster, but a tragic hero, challenging fate itself. Second, the 1979 film by Tinto Brass, Scandalous and Unforgettable, starring Malcolm McDowell, transforms Caligula into a visceral spectacle of excess, desire, and decay. A final, unsettling echo of a ruler who still refuses to fade from the imagination. And as this section slowly settles into silence, we allow the image of Caligula to soften into shadow, preparing us to drift gently toward the final reflections that still await us just beyond the veil of history. Despite its deliberate provocation, the film conveys with surprising accuracy the suffocating atmosphere of power-driven madness and the slow decay of Rome as a late. Beneath the excess, there is a heavy stillness, a sense of airlessness, as if the empire itself is holding its breath. Malcolm McDowell creates the image of an eternal child, impulsive, wounded, and restless, a ruler who treats human lives as toys, not out of joy alone, but out of an inability to grasp their weight. His Caligula feels emotionally frozen, trapped in a state of arrested development where cruelty becomes a form of play and power replaces affection. Third comes the television series 1, Claudius. Here, Caligula appears as almost pure demonic evil, a distilled product of the moral corruption within the Julio-Claudian dynasty. He is portrayed less as a man and more as a curse made flesh, a symptom of a family system poisoned by paranoia, incest, and absolute authority passed from one traumatized generation to the next. This portrayal is extreme, yet it reinforces how deeply the figure of Caligula has embedded itself into cultural imagination as a symbol of unchecked power gone wrong. Administrative legacy? What remains in the final accounting? If we gently set aside the stories of executions and scandals, a quieter question emerges. What does Caligula actually leave behind for the empire? Administrative legacy finances first. Contrary to popular myth, he does not completely empty the treasury. When Claudius comes to power, he finds sufficient funds to launch large-scale construction projects and to distribute bonuses to the soldiers. Caligula collects taxes efficiently and conducts audits of provincial finances, tightening imperial control over revenue. His reign, though short, is relatively stable in administrative terms. He strengthens the borders in Mauritania, reinforcing Roman authority there. In the east, his policy focuses on creating a system of buffer states, loyal not to Rome as an abstraction, but personally to him, a strategy rooted in control rather than cooperation. Infrastructure also matters deeply to him. Beyond aqueducts and circuses, he reconstructs harbors and roads in Italy and Gaul. He understands that Rome survives on movement, of grain, of soldiers, of information. Logistics, not ideology, keeps the capital alive, and in this practical sense, his rule shows moments of clarity and competence. The phenomenon of little boots. Why is he not forgotten? Caligula rules for less than 4 years. By comparison, Augustus reigns for more than 40, Tiberius for 22. And yet it is Gaius who occupies such an immense space in our collective imagination. The phenomenon of Caligula, because he is the first to demonstrate, unmistakably, that an emperor can do anything. He becomes Rome's first true monarch. He refuses to pretend that the Republic still lives. He does not want to play at being a citizen. He wants to be a god. His reign becomes a stress test for the system created by Augustus, and the system fails. There are no legal mechanisms capable of stopping a madman on the throne. Only a conspirator's dagger can end it. His life tells a story of trauma transformed into power, and power hardened into pathology. Gaius Caesar is a product of his time, raised amid executions, conspiracies, and the deification of his own family. He is too young to be wise and too frightened to be merciful. Conclusion of the lecture: The Ghost on the Palatine. As we bring our conversation about Caligula to a close, let us return to that narrow cryptoporticus on the Palatine Hill. Legend says that after his funeral, Caligula's body is hastily cremated and buried in the gardens of Lamia. Soon after, strange things begin to occur in the palace. Servants claim to hear laughter, the echo of boots, and to glimpse the shadow of a young man dressed in imperial purple. This ghost has haunted Western history for 2,000 years. The Ghost on the Palatine. Caligula becomes a mirror in which every form of unlimited power eventually sees itself. He reminds us that behind gold, towering columns, and the worship of leaders, there often hides a deeply unhappy, profoundly lonely, and mortally frightened human being. Rome survives Caligula. It survives Nero, civil wars, and even the fall of the empire itself. But the name Little Boots remains, a warning preserved in memory. Power is not only the ability to build bridges and aqueducts. It is a burden that can crush even the strongest heir of golden blood. Gaius Caesar Germanicus wants to be remembered as a god. He is remembered as a monster, yet in the end, he is simply a man who fails to survive a world where everything is permitted. Epilogue: Legacy in stone and bronze today. Museums around the world hold only a few reliable portraits of Caligula. In them, we see a young man with a high forehead, tightly pressed lips, and deep-set eyes. There is no obvious madness in his features. Instead, there is endless fatigue, suspicion, and vigilance, the face of someone who never feels safe. His enormous ceremonial ships from Lake Nemi are destroyed during the Second World War, burned as German forces retreat. The symbolism feels heavy and fitting. The last physical traces of his luxury vanish in the fire of another global catastrophe, created by different men who also believe in their own exceptional destiny. We close this chapter of history now, but remember this: whenever power becomes uncontested, somewhere in the shadows of long corridors, the soft echo of small soldiers' boots can be heard again, quietly leading us toward the next reflection that still waits in the dark.